to rock this place.
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. We've been off for 2 weeks now, and I've missed talking football with everyone. Now that it is the last week of the regular season, let's get back into the football of things instead of the swing of things and talk some NFL. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and ready to talk about Week 18 NFL football. But first, I'd like to bring on my co-host, Joe Dalio. So without any further ado, and for the last 2 weeks, which seems like forever, here's Joe. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Happy New Year, Jamie. Happy New Year to everybody watching us here. It's great to be back.
As Spanish students would say, Feliz Año Nuevo.
Very good. Muy bien. Feliz Año Nuevo. So you got some hidden Spanish talent there, I guess. But yeah, like you said, it's only been 2 weeks off here, 3 weeks since we were last on, but it seems like forever. So very excited to talk, be back here talking football, especially we just, as you said, wrapped up Week 18. And now the most exciting time of the year coming up and upon us in just a matter of days.
Now, us fans would say it, and it is the most exciting time. And now we would say it with a period, but Jim Mora would say it with a question mark. Playoffs?
Yeah. I think we're saying it more with an exclamation point. Playoffs. Let's go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's still a classic press conference.
Oh, it's the most classic press conference ever.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so are we ready to talk about the first Saturday game of Week 18, the 4:30 p.m. matchup of the Cleveland Browns taking on the Baltimore Ravens?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so here we go. With 8:32 left in the first quarter, not Andrew Wiggins of the NBA, but Nate Wiggins had a pick six for the Ravens to bring the score to 7-0 Baltimore. With 11:03 left in the half, not Aaron Andrews, but Mark Andrews caught a 12-yard touchdown pass from the birthday boy who turns 28 today, Lamar Jackson, to increase the lead to 14-0 Baltimore. Lamar, if you're listening, happy birthday, buddy. With 6:33 to end the half, a former Buffalo Bills draft pick, Dustin Hopkins, hit a 23-yard field goal to bring the score to 14-3 Baltimore. With 10:42 left in the third, Rashad Bateman held in a 7-yard touchdown from Jackson, bringing the score to 21-3 Baltimore. With 11:33 in the fourth quarter, Jordan Akins held in a 60-yard touchdown pass from Bailey Zappy New Year, cutting the lead to 21-10. With 6:44 left in the fourth quarter, Derek King Henry rushed it in for a 2-yard touchdown, bringing the score to 28-10. And he didn't need to lift Jake from State Farm's living room to score on that one for the State Farm commercial. Excuse me, with 3:04 left in the game, Henry sealed it with a 43-yard touchdown rush, and the Ravens won the game 35-10. The Ravens clinched the number 3 spot in the AFC. So, Joe, what did you think about Derrick Henry finishing with 138 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on 20 carries while only averaging 1.2 yards in the first quarter? You got to be thinking, no way. I mean, it's only a matter of time before he gets going, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking. Funny you said, if Lamar Jackson is watching us. Of course Lamar Jackson's watching us, right? Who wouldn't be watching us here today? But, I really have not a lot to say about this game. I mean, it went as expected. It's a nice little playoff tune-up for the Ravens, and I think that was on their mind, staying sharp. Let's go into the playoffs with some positive momentum And they certainly did that. And certainly Derrick Henry had a lot to do with that. I agree with what you said. And yes, I was thinking that exactly, that you knew darn well that he was going to go off at some point. And he did more than that, again, scoring a couple of touchdowns with 138 yards. So again, playoff tune-up for everybody on the Ravens. They look sharp. They look like they're going to be an extremely difficult team to beat. I mean, granted, they were going up against inferior competition here, but I think the Ravens can play well against any competition, as they've proven here. So good playoff tune-up for them. And again, that they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
Yeah, and even though the Browns were inferior competition, the Browns did actually, I give them credit, though, they still showed up and put up a good effort when they could have just packed it in, and they didn't. And what did you think about them starting Bailey Zappi out of the blue? I didn't even know he was on the team, but I think that was a good redemption story for him to get a shot and put some film on tape for other teams. Because I was shocked when New England let him go. He didn't do that bad on New England, but how do you think he did in this game against Cleveland? He did throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah, he did as well as he could. Again, the Ravens are a difficult defense to play against. And again, Zappi doesn't have much to work with there in Cleveland. So I was impressed. Again, where that takes him, maybe he gave himself a chance somewhere. So I give credit to him. And as you said, and not only the Browns, but a lot of teams around the NFL that could have easily rolled over and died and just, waved the white flag and called it a season. A lot of them didn't do that. And a lot of teams that were out of it showed up and played good games here. And we'll talk more about that, as we go along. But so kudos to the Browns. I mean, they had absolutely nothing to play for. Maybe some of them playing for jobs and careers and things like that, as you mentioned with Zappi. So I was a little surprised to see him in there too. But why not? Again, it's a meaningless game for the Browns. So give some guys a chance. And I thought he did a good job taking advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, see, I think this Browns team, they didn't have a good year this year, but they were good last year. This is a team, I think, if they can work around the Deshaun Watson situation, which they re-signed him for 2 years and probably draft a quarterback at number 2 overall and continue to keep the pieces they have. They're a team that could probably rebound and be more like the 2023 version than the 2024 team heading into 2025. We'll see.
Yeah, just as long as if they're going to go after a quarterback, they go more of like a Baker Mayfield type quarterback instead of, shall we say, like Tim Couch or something like that. So, if they do it right, then you're right. They can bring themselves right back to where they were a year ago.
I'm hearing it might be some of the mock drafts have Cam Ward, but we'll see from Miami going to Cleveland.
Okay.
Or Shedeur Sanders. We'll see. But
according to what Shedeur Sanders is going to 50 different places from what I hear. There's all kinds of rumors about that.
Yeah. Anyway, now moving on to the second Saturday game between the Cincinnati Bengals. Welcome to the jungle and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, those terrible towels at 8 p.m. Anyway, let's do it. With 9:49 left in the first quarter, Jamar Cyberchase caught a 12-yard touchdown pass from Joe Slim Shady Burrow, although he doesn't have that hairstyle anymore, to give the Bengals a 7-0 lead. With 1:24 left in the first quarter, Cade, the noble Duke of York, hit a 48-yard field goal, bringing the Bengals lead to 10-0. With 9:54 in the second quarter, Najee Harris ran the ball in for a 1-yard touchdown to bring the score to 10-7 Bengals.
Yeah, of course he did, because my fantasy season's over now. I could have used that touchdown a week or two ago.
Right? About a week ago. Anyway, with 16 seconds left, York hit his second field goal, this time from 27 yards from New York, to close out the half, bringing the score to 13-0 Cincinnati. With 6:56 left in the third quarter, York hit his third field goal of the night for 35 yards to close out the quarter, 16-7 Cincinnati. With 11:02 left in the fourth quarter, get this, folks, York hit his fourth field goal, this time from 23 yards, increasing the Bengals' lead to 19-7. With 8:07 left in the fourth quarter, Pat Freiermuth, everybody's favorite tight end in Pittsburgh, caught a 19-yard pass from Russell Wilson to cut the lead to 19-14 Cincinnati. With 2:39 left in the game, Chris Bosworth, not Brian Bosworth, kicked a 54-yard field goal, but the onside kick failed, giving the Bengals the win, 19-17. So, Joe, we saw Adam go on his Mike Tomlin rant after they lost that game, saying regular season and now they're not going to do well in the playoffs. But what do you think about the Steelers struggling, and do you think they could rebound in the playoffs? Now you're starting to see Adam's point of view, right? I mean,
I do.
Anyway, what's your point of view on this?
So I'd be a little concerned if I was a Steelers fan. I mean, are they capable of turning it around and maybe making some noise in the playoffs? Yes, I think they are. Whether they will remains to be seen. And certainly the momentum is not going in the right direction for that team. I think it seems like to me that they've hit their peak, and they hit that peak a few weeks ago. So again, this is the NFL. Anything can happen, and it can certainly change. And it just takes one little spark to create a major fire here and get a team, to go far. I'm not so sure that's going to happen with the Steelers here.
To play devil's advocate, though, they did play a grueling schedule at the end of the year, which could help them in the playoffs. Who knows?
Which true, and that could have a lot to do with this. But they didn't look like a team to me that, even though, because sometimes you could play that tough competition and still look good. They didn't look good in a lot of these games. And, even this one, it was kind of, lackluster. And again, it's the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are very good at choking away leads at the end of games. And it almost happened here again. The Steelers were almost able to overcome their deficit. Again, I don't know. Any team here is capable of going to the Super Bowl and going on a run. And that includes the Steelers. But I think the Steelers' chances compared to other teams are a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm. And so, Joe, speaking of those Bengals, you did say they're great at choking away leads, but the one thing they've been great at under the Zach Taylor, Joe Burrow regime is starting out slow and finishing strong. But unfortunately, the last 2 years, it wasn't good enough to make the playoffs, whereas it was in 2022-23 when they beat our Buffalo Bills. What do you think about the last 2 years, starting out slow and finishing strong, but not making the playoffs as compared to previous years where they did?
Yeah, that catches up with you after a while. And I put it in my notes here. I said, the Bengals, I give them credit for putting themselves in position with this win against the Steelers, a tough win, playing at Pittsburgh. They did a great job of putting themselves into a position to possibly make the playoffs this year. But you know what? They also eliminated themselves from playoff position with defensive collapses and bad losses, and too many of them earlier in the year. And again, it just catches up. The last or a couple of years ago, again, they caught fire and ended up going to a Super Bowl the one year and almost going again. But those kind of things catch up with you, and that's a pattern. And I think that's something that they're going to have to work on here, that the coaching staff is definitely going to have to work on, because they're not going to want to get off to these slow starts again, because now they see a couple of years in a row that's going to look them or have them looking on the outside, or I'm sorry, from the outside looking in at the playoff picture. So again, they got themselves in position, but they had already eliminated themselves earlier.
Yep. I could definitely agree with that. So moving on to our game of the week, the 1:00 competition between the 13-3 Buffalo Bills. We've been able to say that for a little bit, since a certain quarterback and a certain coach retired, right, taking on the 3-13 New England Patriots, something we haven't been able to say in a long time, the 3-13 New England Patriots, huh?
Yeah, I feel like it's like 1992 or something,
Yeah, That's because it is, but in 2024 or 2020,
Right.
yep, 2025 now, but 2024 season.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here we go. Here we go. With 4:28 left in the first quarter, Joe Milton III rushed it for a 1-yard touchdown to bring the Patriots lead 7-0. On a 75-yard drive, which took 7 minutes and 16 seconds off the clock, rookie Ray Davis scored on fourth down from a 2-yard pass from Mitch Trubisky with 12:14 left in the second quarter, bringing the score to 7-7. With 9:22 left in the second quarter, Milton passed to Keyshawn Booty for a 48-yard touchdown to bring the score to 14-7 Patriots. With 4:35 left in the second quarter, Tyler Bass Pro Shops kicked a 49-yard field goal, bringing the score to 14-10 Patriots. On second and goal with 8 minutes left in the third quarter, James Jimbo Cook scored on a 1-yard touchdown run, tying O.J. Simpson's 16 rushing touchdown record and leads the league with rushing touchdowns. But Tyler Bass mixed the extra point, bringing the score to 16-14 Buffalo. With 1:04 left in the third quarter, Joey Sly Fox, or Joey My Hips Don't Sly, kick a 41-yard field goal to give the Patriots the lead back 17-16. With 8:57 left in the fourth quarter, Sly kicked his second field goal, this time for 42 yards, bringing the score to 20-16 Patriots. With 1:59 left in the fourth quarter, Sly kicked his third field goal for 50 yards, which would bring the final score to 23-16 Patriots. So, Joe, what do you think about James Cook tying O.J. Simpson's total rushing touchdown record of 16?
Yeah, congratulations to him. And he kind of did it quietly. You know, either I wasn't paying attention or not a lot of people were talking about it much before this game. But that's kind of how James Cook runs, right? He's not flashy. He doesn't get a lot of attention. I mean, people are starting to realize he's one of the better running backs. I'd say definitely in the top 10, top running backs in the NFL. And he's starting to get a little bit more attention. But overall, he's kind of done things quietly without much pizzazz or without much fanfare. So this just kind of snuck up on me. It's like, oh, wait, I didn't know he was going with this. And, I usually am pretty good at keeping track of stats and following that stuff. So good for him. I mean, well-deserved. And I was very happy to see him get it. You want to see guys like this, break records like that or tie records like that. Now, again, this game didn't mean anything for either team, but it still had some entertainment value, right? The Bills, second stringers, doing good here. I like how, Josh Allen was able to keep his, game started streak going, and he started the game and was done after that. So they handled that right. And I'll talk about some other Bills players in a second. But one thing I admire here, now people can disagree with me, and they often do, but I admire the New England Patriots, believe it or not, and the Patriots playing to win. I don't care about first-round draft picks and the like that. And other teams in this situation also played to win, like we were talking about with the Browns. Sports is about winning. And that should be the number one goal, no matter what the situation is. Here in Buffalo, we're going to talk hockey for a second. About 10 years ago, the Buffalo Sabres literally celebrated losing. They were the worst team in the league, and they were, people wanted them to lose so they can get one of the two top, generational draft picks that were out there. Well, guess what? Nothing changed, and they created an atmosphere of losing that's still here 10 years later. So, go ahead, try to lose, try to get a first-round draft pick, and it's not going to work out too well. It's going to create an atmosphere of losing that's not going to help. Look at what the Houston Texans did a couple of years ago. They were in the exact same situation. They could have gotten the number one pick, but they won the game, trying desperately to win it, and they did. And they got some guy named C.J. Stroud. So I don't think they ended up in too bad a shape, even though they didn't get the first overall pick. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking and hoping that's how these teams are looking at it as well. You know, they're playing to win. And I think in the long run,
Mhm.
they get rewarded for doing that.
Mhm.
So really, that's something that really bothers me. And I one day I really want to see the NFL get a lottery type thing like the NBA and the NHL have as far as draft picks. So a team is less likely to tank. But I didn't see a lot of tanking going on this weekend, and I was very encouraged by that. Not only with the Patriots, but again, we talked about the Browns and even teams like the Giants going for it and stuff like that. So I give credit to those teams. Now, it was fun to watch. Now, again, I'm from Lancaster, New York here, and some guy named Joe Andreessen from Lancaster, New York, got his time to play in this game. And guess what? He led the team in tackles, in total tackles with 10. So excellent to see that. We also see some, got to see some potential defensive stars of the future here, right? Javon Solomon, Edefuan Ulafosio, right? That I had to practice saying that name and I still screwed it up. Dwayne Carter, some of the draft picks from this year here. And you wonder if we'll be seeing them a lot more in the near future. So it was good to see those guys get their chance. Good to see Trubisky playing like he belonged on the field. I thought he played pretty good. Ray Davis has shown that he's belonged on the field all year, but he, definitely went and showed that he belongs and, played excellent. And again, you mentioned James Cook, getting his touchdown there. So even though, again, the game meant absolutely nothing, and I'll admit there was times during the game where I had it on more as background as I was doing other things around the house, but it still had some decent, entertainment value. And again, I credit everybody on both teams for showing up and trying to win this game.
I see your point of view on that. I agree. So, anyway, Joe, what did you think about Mitch Trubisky's gameplay, as he was an admirable 15 to 21 for 101 yards with a touchdown? I mean, he tried his best. I mean, he played a part. I mean, I think he proved that he's been a very good backup when his name's called, and he was a good backup even before when he didn't play the first time. So
yeah, like I said, he showed that he belonged on the field, and I like the way he played, and he continues to take advantage of those opportunities. Then it gives a little bit of peace of mind anyway, that if God forbid something ever happened to Josh Allen, you got somebody that at least can keep you in the game here and not make it a disastrous thing. So,
and one thing about him, I wonder if he still feels pissed that he didn't live up to being better than Mahomes. I wonder if that still kind of shafts him a little bit, even as a backup now, So I think he's motivated to, be the backup behind our franchise quarterback and learn from him. So it feels like it came full circle for him at some point.
Yeah, he seems content. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to be starting somewhere, and I'm sure maybe like what you said, it gives him a little bit of a motivation. But I think he seems pretty content as to where he is at this point. Hopefully, he'll have the description as Super Bowl champion next to his name this year after this season. So.
But see, right now the narrative about him is I'm going to use another comparison. He's like the Ken O'Brien to Dan Marino, like where he was picked first before Mahomes, and he wasn't a bad quarterback, but nobody expected Mahomes to be Mahomes. Whereas like the Jets took Ken O'Brien instead of Dan Marino, whereas Ken O'Brien wasn't bad, but nobody expected Marino to turn out to be Marino. I wonder if you think that's a fair comparison I'm giving there.
I think that's an excellent comparison, actually. Again, you don't have that hindsight. And again, I think I can only guess. I can't read Trubisky's mind. But I think again he's content with where he is at this point. I think he knows I'm not Patrick Mahomes, and I think he knows he's not at that level. Now, again, not to take away from him, I'm sure he's not taken away from himself, but let's take things day by day, year by year, and just make our contributions to a team. And I think he's content at where he is at this point. And if anything else comes up later on, I'm sure he'll do his best to take advantage of that.
And that's how Ken O'Brien basically felt when he was with the Jets. Same thing. He was content that he wasn't going to be Marino, but he had the right attitude and he took it day by day, before he got hurt.
I mean, I'll tell you what, though, with Ken O'Brien, I mean, there was times where he was darn close to Marino, especially it seemed like when they were playing the Dolphins. How many times were there like 45 to 42 games where both of those guys were throwing for like 500 yards? And, those games in the mid 80s against the team, the over was probably 60. And I would have taken it because these teams were always going at each other. And, definitely Dan Marino is, steps above Ken O'Brien as it turns out. But there were a lot of times where O'Brien matched,
Yeah, because he was determined that he could do it. And
right.
There was actually a game where he beat Marino's Dolphins too. One of those games, the Jets actually won, I think, too.
I remember it because I was in college. It was like 85 or one of those seasons, 85, 86, somewhere in there. And it was like an overtime game where the Jets won literally like 45-42, something crazy like that, where both quarterbacks had over 500 yards passing.
Yeah. Anyway, back to our regular schedule program in 2025. Even though we can reminisce about the good old NFL and the in the 80s, but let's talk about the great competition we have now too.
Sounds like a plan.
Anyway, turning the tables? How do you feel about Joe Milton III making his debut? And he looked like, dare I say, he looked like Josh Allen out there. I mean, he's built like Josh Allen. He's got a strong arm like Allen, and he's mobile like Allen, going 22 or 29 for 241 yards and 2 touchdowns. And what do you think? Do you think he's going to be the backup on New England, or do you think he may have earned a shot with another team? Because I saw an article saying that the Colts were going to trade Anthony Richardson to the Patriots or Joe Milton on the Colts.
I'd be a little surprised if that happened right away. I mean, it's tough to tell. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I thought he was great. But again, you're going against the Bills' second string defense. Got to take that into account as well. Time will tell. I think, maybe we wait and see, but he certainly made a case for himself. We'll say that.
No, I did. Yeah, and Sal Majorana, who we've had on our podcast, actually wanted the Bills to draft Joe Milton because he said he reminds him of Josh Allen. He's tall, big like him. He's got a strong arm, and he can make those impossible throws. But they said Drake May could do the same thing too. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and I definitely think you got to give Drake May more time to develop as well. So, we'll see what happens with that. Maybe.
Yeah, they will get time to develop, but we're going to talk about a situation that I think should have never happened, but we'll get to that later. Anyway. Okay. What do you think? Another cool thing, we saw the Bills activated Mike White from the practice squad. So he didn't fare as well as Trubisky did, but it must have felt good for him that he finally got an opportunity to play in a regular season game. And because I think they said the thought was next year they want to give him a full off season to compete for the backup job with Trubisky. So what do you think they'll do with him going forward?
I think they'll do exactly that. I think they'll give him a chance, maybe some competition in the preseason. And I felt like I was watching a preseason game, by the way, with this one, because again, with teams, especially the Bills resting starters and stuff like that, it almost had a preseason feel, didn't it?
Yeah.
But so I think they'll do exactly what you just said. Give him a chance to come back and see if he can compete for the backup job.
Yeah, maybe he will get a better chance because he'll now be coming in with a full off season instead of just coming out being signed to the practice squad.
Yes.
Even though his game didn't go that well, but still, that's hard to judge in a game like that.
Exactly.
So, and he did, and given his track record, he didn't really do much with the Cowboys, but he didn't do bad when he was with the Jets when his name was called there.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see what we get here. Okay. So now that we know that the Denver Broncos will be coming to play us this Sunday at 1:00 p.m. in Orchard Park, Joe, who do you think wins the Super Wildcard Weekend game? And give us your prediction on the score.
Okay. So I'm a little worried, and I'm going to put it this way. I talked to some people about this already over the last couple of days. And too many people, now these are fans, not players, too many people are saying, oh, easy game, that we got this. Rookie quarterback, he's not going to do anything here. This is going to be an easy game. And I sure as heck hope that the Buffalo Bills players and coaches are not thinking along those same lines. I highly doubt that they are. But this is not going to be an easy game. And if the Bills think it is, this will be their last game of the season. Again, I think they're smart enough to avoid that. And another thing that was brought up on the radio here on the show I was listening to earlier today, the Broncos came in here last year and beat the Bills. Again, not with Bo Nix, it was with Russell Wilson. But they were saying Sean Payton has these guys thinking that they can win this game, and they're going to come in here thinking they can win this game. And here's what I think is going to happen. We know the Bills get off to slow starts. And, I mean, we know they can't in a game like this, but I could see it happening again. And I think even late third quarter, this game is very close. And there's very few points separating each team on either side. Perhaps the Broncos even winning late third quarter. I think the Bills eventually take over in the fourth, and they still win by 10. But it is not going to be easy at all. And I just pray that the Bills are not taking this game for granted because, again, if they do, it's going to be their last game. So upon saying that, I'm going to predict a final score of Bills 30, Broncos 20.
You hit it right on the nail, and that was my prediction. I'm going to go Buffalo 30, Denver 20.
Excellent. Well, like you said before, great minds think alike, right?
Yep. Speaking of those horsies or the Broncos, now drawing our attention to the 4:25 Sunday bout between the 15-1 asterisk next to that Kansas City Chiefs, taking on the 9-7 Denver Broncos or the horsies. Because this game meant everything to the 9-7 Denver Broncos, they started all their starters. But the 15-1 Kansas City Chiefs already had the number one seed, so they didn't. With 11:55 left in the first quarter, Marvin Mims Jr., keep an eye on him, he's fast, caught a 32-yard pass from Bo Nix, and the Broncos led 7-0. With 4:53 left in the first quarter, Cortland Sutton caught a 10-yard pass from Nix to bring the lead to 14-0 Broncos. It's Broncos time. like that Hunch FanDuel commercial.
Yep.
With 6:46 left in the second quarter, Devon Veal caught a 3-yard pass from Nix to bring the score to 21-0 Broncos. With 3 seconds left in the half, Will Lutz kicked a 33-yard field goal to end the half, 24-0 Denver. With 2:49 left in the third, Mims Jr. caught his second touchdown pass from Nix, bringing the score to 31-0 Denver. With 9:40 left in the fourth, Audric, the baby bus Estime, rushed it in for a touchdown to clinch a playoff spot and win the game 38-0. Congratulations goes out to the Broncos. So, Joe, what do you think about the Broncos doing what they needed to do to get into the playoffs?
Yeah, not surprised that they won this game, but I expected it to actually stay close. I was thinking, the Chiefs aren't just going to roll over and let this team, steamroll them into the playoffs. I was thinking maybe, again, the Broncos not being in this position in a while, would nerves take over? You're still playing the Chiefs. You still have to win. You got other teams breathing down your neck. I expected them to come out a little tight in this game. And again, the Chiefs being in the game or if not winning the game just by default. But I was definitely wrong about that. I mean, the Broncos pulled out all the stops. They didn't play tight. They played very confidently. And they played almost like they were the better team. And the players that were out there on at the time made them the better team, of course, with the Chiefs resting everybody. But I didn't expect a 38-point demolition. I thought they would keep it within a couple of touchdowns and still win. But again, by default, I think the Chiefs would still stay in this game, but not the case at all. And kudos to the Broncos. And again, that type of team you cannot take lightly.
Mm-hmm. And do you think the Broncos would have had a chance to win if the Chiefs started all their starters? Because remember what happened with the Bills. They actually lost a game where they had to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers backups to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I honestly think the way the Broncos played this game, I think they could have and probably would have beaten the Chiefs, even if the Chiefs had their top guys out there. I really do. With the game being in Denver, with the Broncos coming out as determined as they were, I that's a good point. I didn't think about that until you just asked me, but honestly, I think the Broncos would have won that game anyway.
Yeah. So now moving on to the very last game of Week 18, the 14-2 Minnesota Vikings taking on the 14-2 Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football. How did the league know to save two of the very best teams for the last game of the season? Man, they're smart, the NFL.
Right.
Says no one ever, but this case they got it right. Anyway, with 1:43 left in the first quarter, not Joe Gibbs, but Jahmyr Gibbs ran it in for a 7-yard touchdown to bring the score to 7-0 Detroit. With 6:35 left in the second quarter, Will Reichard kicked a 25-yard field goal to cut the lead to 7-3 Detroit. With 20 seconds left, Reichard kicked his second field goal of the evening, this time for 31 yards, bringing the score to 7-6 Detroit. As time expired in the first half, Jake Bates, UFL, hit a 48-yard field goal, bringing the halftime score to 10-6 Detroit. With 9:35 in the third quarter, Reichard hit his third field goal for 51 yards to cut Detroit's lead 10-9. With 2:30 left in the third quarter, Gibbs caught a 10-yard pass from Jared Goff, bringing the score to 17-9 Detroit. With 13:06 left in the fourth quarter, Gibbs rushed in a 13-yard touchdown to increase the Lions' lead to 24-9. With 5:14 left in the game, Gibbs scored on a 5-yard touchdown run to seal the win and the NFC North title with a final score of 31-9. So, Joe, what happened to Sam Darnold? Was Detroit's defense that good, or was Darnold just having a bad game?
I think it was a combination of both. The Lions showed up to play for sure, and I think the moment got to Sam Darnold a little bit. I think it was a combination of both. And, I'm not surprised that the Lions won this game. I mean, they were only 2.5-point favorites in this game. And I grabbed it. I said I could see the Lions winning this game by 10, but they went above that. They won by like 20 almost, or what was it,
22.
22. Yeah, I'm not a math teacher. I'm a Spanish teacher. But, I wasn't surprised that the Lions won the game. I was surprised by how much they won by and how dominant it turned out to be. And again, I think the moment got to Sam Darnold a little bit. But I think it's maybe a good thing for the Vikings. I mean, it's not good that they had a chance to be the number one seed and get a bye and didn't get it. And now they got to travel halfway across the country, to play a game on the road. But I think maybe it's a good thing to get this out of their system. And we'll talk about the upcoming games in a minute, but I expect them to play very well in Los Angeles. And I think, they got this one out of their system, and I think they can reset and say, hey, we're still a great team. Let's show what we can do and make a run.
And guess who the winner of that game would have to play next?
Right? They go to Detroit, don't they?
Yeah, just like they did in this game. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll see. But anyway, Joe, what do you think about a team with 14 wins that loses this game, has to drop down to the 5th seed and play on Super Wildcard Weekend? I think it's the first time in history that's happened in the NFL.
Yeah, and it's just bad luck, and for you're in any other division, and you're a first place team, and you're getting you're a 2nd seed, and you're playing, at home in the first playoff game. But just kind of bad luck for them. And, again, hopefully they can recover from this and play a good game in their first game, even though it's on the road.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, it is now that time in our show for a question of the week segment. So, Joe, would you like to give it a try?
I would. And I'm going to say something, too. I got to find it. My friend Tom that watches us here that we've talked about before, he sent a question to throw your way, too. So I have to look at it because it's in text and it's a little hard to understand, and I'm hoping I'm getting it right. But, we'll get that. And I'll take your question first, and then we'll try this one.
Okay, Joe, here's your question. Who holds the NFL record for the most career passing touchdowns by a left-handed quarterback? Is it Michael Vick, Boomer Esiason, Mark Brunell, Steve Young?
Ooh. That is tough, and I really don't know the answer to this one, but I am going to guess, and I'm going to say Steve Young.
Nope, it was Boomer Esiason. He had 247 touchdowns.
All right, and I probably wouldn't have guessed him next either. So, good question, but yeah, very good question because I didn't know the answer to that. All right, let's see. He says a question for Jamie. So let's see if you can do this. All right, so he says Aaron Rodgers became the 5th NFL quarterback to throw 500 touchdowns. Out of these 5 quarterbacks listed below, who has also thrown 500 plus touchdowns? All right, so he puts Dan Fouts, Warren Moon, Terry Bradshaw, Drew Brees, or Joe Montana?
Drew Brees.
You are correct. Excellent.
Yep. Because I know, because it makes sense because I've been around, and like I said, in this modern day passing era, you had Brady. I think Brady did too. So you had in this quarterback passing era, you are gonna have 500. Warren Moon, I don't know if he did, but he could have, because they played that run and shoot system where they just passed all the time with Gilbride.
Right.
So
well, there's a part 2 to this question here. Can you name the other 4?
Yep.
And you said Brady, right?
Brady, Brees.
Obviously Brees, and there's 2 more.
Phillip Rivers.
Not Phillip Rivers.
Okay. Wait, Brees, Brady, Manning.
Yep. Peyton
Manning, yep.
Or should I say Peyton? No.
Or debating, calculating.
Yeah. And you got one more.
Let me think. It's not Terry Bradshaw because he played in the league when it was basically a running league. It was a ground and pound league, but he had good numbers at the time for a quarterback in that era and won the Super Bowls.
This quarterback was at his peak in the 90s.
Okay. Dan Marino. No, Dan Fouts.
No, he was 80s.
Dan Marino.
No.
Kelly?
Think I'll throw a hint out there.
John Elway.
No.
Oh, Brett Favre.
There we go.
Yeah.
Brett Favre. So good job on there.
Mm-hmm.
And one more question, he said. I'll throw this one at you. Which Giants coach has been on the sidelines for all 4 Giants Super Bowl victories? Bill Parcells, Brian Daboll, Bill Belichick, Tom Coughlin.
For all 4 Giants Super Bowl wins?
Yeah, it's a kind of a trick question here. Which coach was on the sidelines for all 4 Giants Super Bowls?
It was none of them.
The answer is actually Bill Belichick.
Oh, it was because he coached the Patriots when they which on the sideline. It was
right
because he won 2 with Parcells over Denver and the Bills, and then he went up against the Giants and lost twice.
He was on the sideline, the Patriots sidelines for the other one there.
That was a trick question.
It's a trick question.
That does make sense.
Definitely. And I looked at it. I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking? Oh, I get it now and everything. So
yeah, it's like that show Idiot Test where you have to do all that stuff on Game Show Network.
Yeah. So Tom, thank you. I know you're going to be watching this later. We appreciate the question. Excellent question. And
yeah, thank you, Tom. I love that. You picked my brain a little bit and challenged it.
Yeah, and Jamie got most of them here. So
mm-hmm.
I don't think any of us would have got that question, the Bill Belichick one, but
right.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask my uncle that one and see if he gets it.
Okay.
He's a Giants fan. Okay. So we're going to make our predictions on the rest of the Super Wildcard Weekend games. We already did the Bills and the Broncos, saying that we both have them winning 30-20. But let's start out with the Saturday 4:30 matchup on CBS between the 11-6 LA Chargers versus the 10-7 Houston Texans, who, despite having the worst record, get a home game for winning the AFC South. So, Joe, who do you think wins that one, and what's the final score?
I think this is going to be a battle, and it's going to be the first game of the playoffs, and I think people are going to be watching this game saying, "Oh my goodness, if this is how these playoff games are going to be, we're in for a wild ride." I think this one ends. I almost said San Diego. The LA Chargers 24, Houston Texans 23.
Yes, and remember, folks, this is the game that's going to determine who goes to Kansas City too.
Right, and another reason I'm definitely hoping the Chargers win this game, because I think they would have a much better chance, being a division rival, matching up against the Chiefs. We need somebody to beat the Chiefs, and there's only one shot. And I honestly think the Chargers have a much better shot of beating them than the Texans do. So I'm really hoping the Chargers win this game, and I think they win it by 1.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on this one?
I think this is going to be a battle, and I think the Chargers win it at the gun, 25-24.
Wow. Okay.
On a game-winning kick, I think. Number 2, we have the Saturday competition on Amazon Prime Video. We have the 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers, the reeling Steelers at the end of the season, taking on a dangerous Baltimore Ravens team who's 12-5 and is the 3 seed in this playoff. And this game right here, this game right here would determine who Buffalo would play if they beat Denver in this game.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe, what do you think with this game? Who wins and final score?
Well, it's funny because I have the same final score as I do for the Bills game. I picked the Bills to win 30-20, and I think the Ravens win 30-20, and I think it's a lot like the Bills game. I think it's very close, late third quarter here. And I think the Ravens end up taking it away. Perhaps another second half excellent performance by Derrick Henry. and takes the Ravens to the promised land here. So I think this game is going to be very, very similar to the Bills game. Both teams are in it. It can go either way right to the end of the third quarter, but the Ravens take it over in the fourth and win by 10.
Good. That's good. So my thoughts are I'd like to see the Steelers win because I think Buffalo would have a better chance of beating them.
Right.
But I think it's going to be chalk in that game if the Bills win that game, and we're going to get the Bills-Ravens rematch from this season, this time in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So I think the Ravens, I'm going to say they're going to win 34-24.
Okay.
And again, if Buffalo wins, we would play the winner of this game.
Yeah.
Now, this game's going to actually be determined. They're playing before the Bills, so that's what's the difference, though.
Yes.
So, anyway, moving on to the Sunday 4:30 game on Fox. The 11-6 Green Bay Packers taking on the 14-3 Philadelphia Eagles. Joe, who wins? Final score.
This, I think, is going to be another instant classic. You know, same with the Packers. I was talking about the Vikings, and they got their bad game out of their system. The Packers got the stinker out of their system. And I think they're going to make this very close. Now, I'm picking, in the beginning of the year, I picked the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl, and I'm going to stick with that. However, I think they get a major scare here. And I think, again, this goes right down to the wire. I have Eagles 24, Packers 21.
That's I think that's interesting. And so now this is what I think. Everybody's saying Green Bay doesn't have a chance because they're the 7th seed and they have to go on the road against a 2 seed. But what happened last year when that happened? Green Bay got the 7th seed, beat a
LOL. We are talking about the Cowboys.
Beat a 2 seed at home. Now, even though this is a much better Eagles team, I think the Packers, history repeats itself. I'm going to say the Packers in an upset, 25-24.
All right. Certainly not out of the question. I mean, I would not be shocked if the Packers went to the Super Bowl. I really wouldn't. I doubt it, but I would not be surprised.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously the winner of that game would play the winner of this game. Mm-hmm. So the Eagles or the Packers would have to play the winner of the Sunday 8:15 matchup on NBC. The 12-5 Washington Commanders, led by Jaden Daniels, at the 10-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneer, led by a Buccaneer himself, Baker Mayfield. So I don't know if he's a young buck or an older buck, but he's a buck. Anyway, so Joe, you know the drill. Winner and final score.
All right. I think all year long, Jaden Daniels has not let the moment affect him. He just keeps getting better. He shows that he's a big game player. And I think what's going to happen in this playoff game, Jaden Daniels is not going to let the moment get to him. And I think the Commanders win this game 31-27.
Mm-hmm. Great minds think alike, Joe. The Buccaneers are a nice story, but Jaden Daniels has been hot. Give me Washington in an upset 31-30.
Okay.
Which means you would have guess what? Your matchup would be the Eagles and the Commanders. This would be mine is the Packers and the Commanders in the next round.
Okay.
So anyway, we're going to go to the Monday night football game between the 5th seed Monday night 8:50 do on ABC for the right to go to Detroit in the divisional series. The 14-3 Minnesota Vikings taking on the 10-7 LA Battery Rams. Or the Inglewood Rams, as we say.
Yeah, right.
The LA Rams. Anyway, Joe, you know the drill. Winner, final score.
All right. Well, I said it before. I think the Vikings got their bad game out of the system. I think they're going to recover. The Rams are no slouch, though. They're not going to certainly be a pushover, but I got the Vikings winning this game 27-24.
I think it would be cool. The Rams are a nice story. Inglewood is their home. It's in a nice sunny Southern California. Matthew Stafford's got everything going well for him. I mean, he's got a nice wife. He's got a nice team, nice crowd, nice people backing him. But give me the Vikings in a road upset, 24-22, because the Vikings are determined to go back to Detroit, and they got their bad game out of their system, and they're going to get the revenge game there. But if the Rams also win, they would have a rematch of the wild card game last year in Detroit.
That's right.
So anyway, good luck to all the teams. Well, looks like we come to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you on social media on, oh my gosh, Tuesday, January 7th, 2025, not 4, people.
2025. Time goes fast, let me tell you. But I am on Joe Dell Sports on Twitter X. I'm trying to get that site a little more active than I've had it. So, putting stuff on there about not only football, but all different sports as well. So you can follow me there and, catch some of my 2 cents worth on anything from football to golf and anything in between.
Yep. And then you can find me, yours truly, on Bill's Chat 1 at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X and theforkball.com, where I write about all sports. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and ring the bell for notifications. For more content on Driving to the Top Productions, please visit our YouTube page, Twitch stream, Facebook stream, X stream, wherever you consume your podcasts. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, Jerod Mayo shouldn't have never been fired after just 1 season of head coach of the New England Patriots. A 14-win team shouldn't have to fall down to the number 5 seed and play on Super Wildcard Weekend. Mm-hmm. And let's give a shout out to James Cook for tying O.J. Simpson's rushing touchdown record of 16. And to quote our friend Chris Berman, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. See you next week, folks. Happy New Year y feliz año nuevo.
Excelente. Enjoy the games.
Mm-hmm.